McNally's my name. I'd like to say a few words about OpenStreetMap, which hopefully you've already heard about, and if you haven't, hopefully you'll be very enthused by and join the project and help us to complete a map of the world. Actually, the map here on the cover page is a little bit out of date, but we'll see some slightly better scenes of Belfast as we go along. So I'll just race through. I've given I suppose a similar presentation for quite some time, which is focused around, you probably know nothing about OpenStreetMap and it's in its infancy. I've actually upgraded it a little bit, and I've tried to take put more of a focus on exactly what people are doing with OpenStreetMap, because there's a level of maturity arising in many parts of the world at least. So very briefly, what OpenStreetMap is, it's a liberally licensed map data set. And data set as opposed to a map itself, because whereas there are many maps based on OpenStreetMap, a key thing to understand is that the underlying map data is out there for everybody to use for pretty much anything they wish. Its scope, notwithstanding the name OpenStreetMap, it's about a lot more than actually mapping streets. You'll see some examples during the presentation of some extremely rich maps built on essentially some very, very simple tools. It is a wiki-minded project in the sense that absolutely anybody can go in and edit the live map database. It's designed in a pragmatic way, so whereas the GIS industry is full of very, very complex tools and concepts like projections and ellipsoids and stuff like that, OpenStreetMap at its fundamentals is designed around a very, very simple data model, designed to make it as simple as it could possibly be for people to capture the world around them. It is used, and again I'll show you some demonstrations, it is used already for a lot of real work. It is vector data in the sense that it's not just a picture of the streets, it's actually, there's enough sufficient topology in the database to be able to do, for instance, routing applications, which is a very, very important thing to be able to do if you're going to have map data. And again, as we'll see, in many places around the world, the detail and the accuracy of OpenStreetMap exceeds that of commercial, certainly commercial digital maps. So, but ultimately again, the output of what we do is maps of one sort or another. Is the detail of around about, notwithstanding our current location around about Queens, just because there are a few green areas around there, it makes for a nice, more contrasting map. I'm not sure, yeah, the quality actually is reasonably decent, luckily enough, that we're seeing. My background has nothing to do with maps. I'm involved in the travel industry, but I did grow up in a house full of maps, and that gave me a love of the whole idea of maps. Within OpenStreetMap, I've done a couple of things. I created a coastline for Ireland, which is an important thing to have if you're going to have a map of an island. You really do want to see where the sea is and where the land begins. I did an import of place names for both Republic and Northern Ireland. So we'll see a picture of how that looked in a moment. And whereas a lot of people like to do urban mapping, very detailed mapping, I like that as well, but a key priority for me has always been get the major road network down, so no matter where you are, there is something there that you can hang more detail on. This is a picture of, I'm not sure, if you have a bit of imagination you can make it the shape of Northern Ireland there. This was one of the earliest, well it's the only mass data import that there's been of Northern Ireland. Basically this is a place names and their locations that I imported from data that's actually produced by the US government. It's not terribly accurate, but at least once it's down there, it allows mappers to go and correct the positions of things. It means at least there's a placeholder for essentially every even small place. You'll see the level of detail, and each of those little fuzzy spots is something from the level of a crossroads spot. We do have some quite powerful tools that have evolved with the project. This is called the JOSM editor, the Java OpenStreetMap editor. You can see the shape of a motorway intersection there. That's in the west of Dublin. If you're lucky, you can just about make a satellite imagery, but in fact that's aerial imagery from the Yahoo project. Yahoo have kindly allowed us to derive map data from their detailed aerial photography where that exists. So that's quite useful, quite good in urban areas. It's quite good in Dublin, Belfast and Cork. Yeah, so this is a whole lot more to say about that, but anyone who's interested in more detail on that will be provided. One of the problems getting across the idea of why OpenStreetMap exists and why we need it is that people have a perception that maps these days have never been freer or never been more accessible. Certainly Google, Yahoo, Microsoft, they all have some angle on maps. But if you've got to analyse the actual, your requirements and whether they're fulfilled. For many purposes they will be, and of course those maps will all get better as well. You do have to distinguish between free beer and free speech. So whereas you can certainly go and use all those services, there are always some sorts of terms of use that may restrict some of what you might like to do. The question is, can or may you print it out and distribute it? The answer is probably you'll get away with it, but certainly you shouldn't be, many people do, but you shouldn't be typesetting an advertisement for your commercial premises, printing a Google map on it. That's actually not allowed. You're not supposed to be doing that. Likewise, can you or may you, and in this case, can more than may, can you get it onto a mobile device? Again, increasingly with Google Maps, you can, as long as you've got a network connection, but I certainly can't get it onto my handheld GPS device, or I can't get it into my vehicle, although that's likely to change as well. Can you use it for turn-by-turn navigation? And the answer is yes, sort of, sometimes, but can you do so if you don't want to enable data roaming in whatever country you may be? If one of the big uses for maps, and it's a particular drawback of a lot of traditional mobile map applications, that you need it most when you're away from home. It costs you most when you're away from home to actually have your data connection on. That problem will solve itself in time, but today you do see that there is a great strength from having data that you really can take and use on your own terms, load it up once and have immediate access to it. Can you create a customized map highlighting all the stuff that you need? We're going to see some examples of the fact that not everybody's needs are served by the same kind of map. With the commercial maps you tend to get what you get. Are the free maps that you have access to, are they error-free? We know that that's not the case. At best they were error-free once, but are just not quite up to date. But in many cases there are some really glaring errors that persist for years. And of course, if there are errors, well, you can fix those errors, right? With commercial maps, you can just go in and say, that's wrong, and change it.